I'm Esther Lupafya, co-presenting with Emily. SFHC is using farmer participatory research to address gender norms in Malawi. Our goals: nutrition and food security, soil health and seed security, gender and social equity. Our approaches: participatory farmer-led research, experimentation and innovation, valuing indigenous knowledges, farmer-to-farmer exchange. Farmer participatory research model. Farmer research team, FRT, these are farmer trainers selected by the community and chiefs to conduct research and share knowledge with the community, usually one man, one woman. Community promoters, these are SFHC staff who are also farmers. They coordinate trainings, meetings, and other activities. General Assembly, this is an annual meeting to give input to SFHC activities and research in the community. Research partnership, we have formal collaborators with NGOs and universities. Some examples are Cornell University, where Dr. Besnick and the students are, also universities within Malawi. Addressing gender equity, gender balance on FRTs, usually one man, one woman per village. Target 50% women. Nutrition trainings, DCP days with grandmothers and spouses. Community theater, gender campaigns. As you see the photo. Observations, create space for dialogue, address inequality in a culturally respectful way, need to address intergenerational views. There can be tension between participatory approach and addressing inequality power dynamics.
So the objective of this research that we're presenting is how to build on SFHC's participatory approaches and the way that they've been integrating gender over the years to develop what a suitable gender transformative model might look like for SFHC. So our research is organized around 3 questions. Basically, how does a gender transformative approach change gender attitudes and inter-household decisions, particularly those that are important to food and nutrition security? We want to look in particular about men's engagement and how their engagement in gender transformative activities influences gender norms and dynamics of gender equity in the communities. And finally, what would the local goals and action steps for gender equality look like? And what do the communities prioritize when we develop community action plans in a participatory way? So we started with a qualitative baseline study to understanding the gender norms are always in flux. What are the changing community gender norms and attitudes at present? How are cultural expectations around marriage and definitions of empowerment changing in these 4 patrilineal communities that we selected in Mzimba in northern Malawi? We drew the baseline tool from, we adapted from the Genovate toolkit, and some of the key baseline themes were understanding current marriage practices, including how marriages are arranged and payments that are expected, how livelihoods patterns are changing, in particular looking at migration patterns, what gender trends are noticeably changing in the communities, where's the tension, what practices are changing, for example, around divorce, the polygamous marriages, ideas of empowerment, and how are people perceiving these changes in gender norms and practices, and what changes do the communities hope to see in terms of gender relations? For the design, we wanted to look at the impact of migration on gender and marriage dynamics. So we selected 2 village areas where there are high rates of male migration, which are likely to affect both livelihoods and gender dynamics, and 2 communities where there is less male migration. In addition, we wanted to look at what's the effect of having been exposed to previous gender trainings and how does that shape gender relations going forward. So we identified 2 village areas where SFHC has done some gender work through its MAFA curriculum, and some areas where there has not been a gender intervention. And in each of these 4 village areas, we wanted to select for a diversity of participants as well. So we interviewed men and women from 6 couples. We wanted to identify some older couples, older than 45 years, and younger couples, which we selected for under 35, and also for participants from both polygamous and monogamous households. So we did individual interviews with men and women from couples or polygamous units, and we also did focus group discussions with men and women in groups.
And we have some important gender and livelihood trends. Farmers in the community receive seed from various groups, help farmers to harvest more. Families able to buy more household materials after selling farming produce. More women doing business and joining savings groups rather than waiting for their husband's money. Also, greater financial stability, that is through joining village bank. More sharing of household responsibility and joint decision-making among men and women. More gender trainings and civic education, SFHC, Plan International, and other NGOs facilitate this. So the major gender observations are, so we had high migration areas and low migration areas. So the migration, usually people go to work in South Africa. So in the high migration, we had the previous SFHC interventions and the other one, no previous SFHC intervention. So where there is the high migration, in Mtiani, we have 4 areas: Mtiani, Chimbongondo, Kawanda, and Bwabwa. In Mtiani, women are involved in decision-making at household and community level, and men also involved in household chores like child care. While where there is high migration and no intervention took place, there is first wives, they fend for the household, and no sexual relationship with the first wife. Gender-based violence is very high, sexual abuse and child abuse also very high, like incest. There is also early marriages leading to divorce, high school dropouts, and arranged forced marriages for young girls to marry men who are working in South Africa, who they have not even seen. Where there is low migration, like in Kawanda, there is teenage marriages without proper arrangements. There is too much drinking and also polygamous marriages. In Bwabwa, where there is no intervention, there is sexual abuse, polygamy, also first wife no longer supported, women access mobile market. Those who go there, the name is called Sarawula in our vernacular languages. They are accused of having extramarital affairs. So other gender concerns are like traditional medicine. The name in our language, Chipichi, this medicine is used to break up marriages. And usually when a man wants to do extramarital, he can't perform anything with another woman because of that traditional medicine. And again, if men have sexual double standards. Men who cheat are accused, while women who cheat, they are told to pack up and go. And also girls are judged for dressing. When they are dressing, usually they say they are engaged in sexual activity, considering not marriageable. For example, in Baba, if you want to find a wife, you cannot find a wife in this village, Baba area. Baba has no wife, material. It has only used or scratched airtime voucher. Lobola system, patrilineal system, enforces control over women, since the man's family has paid lobola to the girl's family, so the girl is looked like can do anything, should work very hard because the man's family have paid for that. Migration, marriage and social issues attributed to men's migration, like prostitution, divorce, infidelities, early and forced marriages, WhatsApp marriages. Gender trainings in Mafa areas where gender training seems to have noticeable impact, men share household chores, women empowered, and less gender-based violence. And also perception of gender changes. There is confusion between human rights and gender, especially in areas where has been no gender training. Some men feel that some women are violating their human rights, and some men feel overpowered or disrespected. Men feel that women have taken advantage of gender. Intergenerational disagreements over gender norms. Youth say, that is, should I not be free to do anything with my life? Daddy, don't you know that nowadays we have gender? Those are the sayings which young people say. Desired changes. There are equal education for boy and girl child, equal distribution of household chores for boy and girl child, respectful communication. People should address each other with respect. Children should respect parents. Training on ending gender-based violence, training on women empowerment, and civic education on gender and human rights.
So the next steps will be to build on these baseline findings about this changing gender norms in these 4 communities, and to roll out a pilot test of an intensive gender transformative approach in these 4 particular communities. So we've seen that where there has been gender intervention in previous SFHC areas, there has been a lasting effect. So what we want to study more carefully is, in a more intensive and targeted transformative approach, what is the lasting effect in these communities? And what is an approach that can fit within SFHC's integrated work? So we plan to build on the tools that are in the SFHC MAFA curriculum, the Farming for Change, along with some other gender transformative tools that have been tested in other parts of Malawi and have been used in gender transformative approaches. So we will begin with a master training for the farmer research teams and the community promoters in these 4 community areas, and roll out a series of dialogues with men and women, younger and older couples over 6 months, a total of 9 sessions. So starting more intensively in the first few months and then meeting monthly after that. And this series of dialogues addressing these topical issues should culminate in the communities developing gender action plans together with community leaders to address some of these issues. And we will monitor this rollout closely together with SFHC staff and the farmer research teams, as well as Cornell researchers like myself as well. So the implications from these baseline findings suggest that that the issues of gender-based violence, sexual norms, early marriage, and migration really need to be addressed and are issues of concern in these communities. There are clear intergenerational divides between youth and older couples around changing gender norms. So that may mean working separately with youth and older couples, or addressing some of these generational divides head on. And that men's engagement is really critical. And there are some perceived threats to men's status that need to be confronted and unpacked in some of these dialogues. And it's really important to understand what brings men on board in terms of responding positively to gender, and where there's areas of resistance. And as part of this approach, it's important that we unpack this tension between these human rights-based conceptions versus more maybe holistic or community-based ideas of what gender equality looks like. So really unpacking that and seeing what comes out of these community action plans will be very interesting to find out. So this has been our presentation, and we thank you for your attention and welcome your feedback and questions.